pleasant day to everyone. For this lesson, I will be discussing the components of a thesis paper, and I will also provide an overview of the different sections of your research work. For EAC, this is your school's format when it comes to undergraduate thesis. Make sure that you will be guided when you write your research paper or when you encode your research paper. First, we have the basic page format. For both thesis proposal and full thesis, you follow the specifications indicated here. So typing and printing, so you type and print not only one side of short bond paper, thick enough so the printing does not show at the back of the paper. So we are referring here to the substance of the paper. The margins, so top, right, and bottom is 1 inch, and the left side is 1.25 inch to allow for binding. Font type and size, Times New Roman 12 points, and spacing of text, naka-double space kayo within and between paragraphs. So to make sure na naka-double space, please follow this instruction para ma-ensure na you are observing the double space typing. Okay? Next, text alignment. You use justified format. So this means that both the left side and right side of the text will be straight. Paragraph indentation, indent the first line of each paragraph by 0.5. Page numbering, the title page is considered the first page of the manuscript but should not bear any page number. So yung inyong cover page or the title page, wala tayong page number doon na nilalagay. Tapos, all the preliminary pages, yung mga madidiscuss ko mamaya, okay, so that should have page numbers that are formatted at the bottom right side corner using small Roman numerals, such as this one. And then all pages beginning from the first page of chapter 1, including all appendices, should have page numbers formatted at the bottom lower right corner using Arabic numerals naman. Okay, so yung preliminary pages, naka-Roman numerals, and then yung chapters na of your research, naka-Arabic numerals. Later, I'll be discussing these sections. Okay, so this is the format of the document na gagawin ninyo kapag nag-encode na kayo ng inyong research paper. So please be guided accordingly. Next, we have the elements of a thesis. So let's talk about the major parts that comprise your research study. We have here the preliminaries, the body of the thesis, and references. Let's discuss them each. So first, the preliminaries or the preliminary pages. It include all of these sections, okay? And it require very specific wording, spacing, and layout. So usually ginagawa yung section na ito kapag nakatapos na kayo sa paper nyo. Okay, so i-discuss, paparaanan natin sana ngayon our discussion. Pero again, you have to accomplish this once you are done with your complete paper. Meaning chapters 1 to 5, you are already complete. You have presented it already to your panelist. Now, your preliminary pages must appear in this order. You have a title page, approval sheet, acknowledgement, abstract, table of contents, list of tables, list of figures, and the list of appendices. So, unahin na natin si title page or the cover page of your thesis or research paper. It should contain all the key information about your document. So, for the title page, you have here your approved title, all caps siya. And then you just copy this. Palitan nyo lang to, no? School of Nursing. Okay? A thesis presented to the faculty of the School of Nursing, EAC. And then in partial fulfillment of the degree of the requirements in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Okay, and then list all your names here since it's a group thesis. List the names of your members here. Surname first, arranged alphabetically. And then dito, kadalasan na nilalagay lang natin is the month and then the year. So, pwedeng March 2017 or ngayon like September 2022. So, this is for the title page. Next, you have the approval sheet. So, this is to prove that the authors, meaning the researchers, have passed the requirements needed for the thesis. So, you will have the names when you are done with the oral defense. So, who will be the chairman, will be the panel members. Okay, ito yung dito kayo magde-defense or magde-defend sa kanila ng inyong thesis, okay, ng inyong study. So, ayan, you will have their names kapag you are done with your paper na. So, ito lang yung sample format. So, approval sheet, all caps. Okay, and then the title here in all caps. Submitted by, indicate all your names here. And then, so again, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, Research Advisor, the name of your advisor, and then the titles, do not forget. So itong grade, with a grade of, this will be given to you kapag meron na. Okay? So, in partial fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Okay? And then the school, the Dean, School of Nursing. So again, accomplish this paper once you're complete with your research study. So their signature means again, they have critiqued your paper. You pass the oral defense and you have revised the paper based on their acceptable recommendation. So ibig sabihin, tapos na kayo. Pag may signature na sila, that means na tapos na talaga kayo with your research study. Next, you have here the certificate of originality. So, originality is one of the most important criteria, di ba, for a successful thesis. Now, this section is like a sworn statement by the researchers that the research study conducted was genuine and authentic. Although you may draw arguments, di ba, from other research work to back up your arguments. So, yan, this is just an example. And then, signature kayo after. Okay, so this one. Okay, you have to accomplish this again after you are done with your study. Acknowledgement. So, acknowledgements enable you to thank all those who have helped in carrying out the research. So, acknowledging assistance and contributions establishes your integrity as a researcher as well as your connections and collaborations. So, this is just an example. Okay, so all caps yung acknowledgement, and you have to enumerate the all those people na gusto nyong i-acknowledge. Okay, you can be specific here. And then ano yung specific contribution nila sa inyong paper. Okay, to your advisors, to your statistician, to our nursing research instructors, etc. Okay, kayong bahala kung paano nyo i-construct to. This is just an example. Next, let's talk about the abstract very quickly. So abstract, it is a short summary of your research paper, usually about a paragraph long. So an abstract lets readers get the gist or essence of your paper or article quickly in order to decide whether to read the full paper. So you accomplish this section once you are fully done in your study. So not more than 250 words, remember, in one paragraph. So ano yung mga dapat included in your abstract? So it should contain the objectives of your study, methodology, results or findings, conclusions, and recommendations. So very short lang to. It's like talagang an overview lang of your study. Now for EAC, this is a sample. So you have here the title of the proof, the proof title, the proponents here, and the research advisor, School of Nursing, EAC. Okay, all caps the abstract. Again, the size, ito yung format naman for the abstract. Font is Times New Roman, size is 10, indent sa first line, and then justified on both sides. Maximum again, 250 words. So again, yung inclusion na abstract, introduction, the problem or the objectives, short significance lang, limitations, and summary of methods. Tapos, a very short summary of results and discussion, conclusions, and recommendations. So, usually naka-past tense to since ginagawa natin to after you are done with your presentation. Okay, after you have revised your paper. So, keywords, isip ka lang ng 5 keywords that can be associated to your study. Now, after the abstract, we have a table of contents. So, this is just a sample. The table of contents is where you list the chapters and major sections of your thesis or research paper alongside with their page numbers. Example, ito, table of contents, all caps, tapos list of tables can be found sa sa page 8, naka-Roman numerals tayo doon. List of figures, 10, list of appendices, 11. Tapos chapter 1, ano yung mga components under chapter 1? Ito, introduction, tayo dito, Arabic numeral, for example, can be found sa page 1. Significance of the study, page 4. Hanggang sa makarating ka sa page 5, tapos references, appendices, and CV or curriculum vitae. By the way, this is the page number of the table of contents paper. Naka Roman numeral tayo for that. For example, this one, page 6 na siya. Ayun. So, ito naman halimbawa, list of tables. Naka-Roman numeral pa rin tayo, page 7. Again, nasa lower right corner of the paper, yung page number for the preliminaries or for the preliminary pages. Okay? So, lower right bottom. Now, list of tables. So, a list of tables shows each of the tables that you use in your thesis with their page numbers. So, kailan lang yung tables na meron ka in your research paper, yun lang yung i-include. So, yung table title lang, For example, table 1. So, the title is Population and Sampling. What's the page number? Okay? Table 1.2, Age. What is the title? The page number, sorry. Page number. Table 1.3, the title is Gender. And then, this is the page number. So, again, kung ilan lang yung tables na meron kayo, yun lang yung ilalagay nyo dito. And then, list of figures, ito naman is exactly that. It is a list of the names of all the figures such as yung mga diagrams or drawings if meron man kayo in your paper. Okay, so together with their page number then. Example, figure 1 dito sa meron tayo, list of figures, may title muna tayo. List of figures here. Tapos figure 1, you have the schematic diagram of the conceptual model of the study. It can be found sa page 7. Okay, tapos yung page number ng list of figures ay ito. Okay, next tayo. List of appendices. So this is where you enumerate all the appendices included in your paper with their corresponding page number. Examples are A, the validation letters, B, certificate of validated questionnaire. Kung nagpa-validate kayo ng inyong instrument or ng inyong questionnaire, you have to include permission letters kung kanino kayo nagpaalam na organization or even to your dean, for example, yung mga communication letters, so you have to include that as well. Instruments of the study, if you need to have a copy of your instrument, so you have to also include that. So kung ano lang yung meron kayo, again, yun lang yung mga ilalagay nyo for your appendices. Okay, so that's it for the preliminaries or the preliminary pages. So most of I mean almost all of them, 'di ba, can be accomplished after you have completed your paper. So after the preliminaries, we now proceed to the next major part of your thesis or the elements of your thesis, which is about the body of the thesis na. So this is the second element, and basically it consists of all the chapters of your research paper from chapters 1 to 5. So ito yung pinaka-laborious and pinaka-extensive na part of thesis. Okay? So ito yung pinakamahalaga definitely, or I mean this is where you really work hard to write your research paper. By the way, I will not be so comprehensive in discussing these sections since kasi maraming sections itong body of the thesis. So I will not be so comprehensive since each part naman will be discussed thoroughly when you are about to write each section. So the purpose lang is to give you an overview of the whole thesis paper. Okay? So first, in your case, this is chapter 1. And then chapter 1, the title is Introduction. Now, under chapter 1, under Introduction, these are the different sections. So, medyo marami siya. Now, you have to accomplish. So, you have the background, statement, objectives, theoretical hypothesis, significance, scope, and definition. So, let's just have them one by one. So for the background of that study, so it is a careful presentation. So this is the first part of chapter 1, the introduction. So ito yung unang makikita ng inyong mambabasa. So it's a careful presentation of the importance and validity of the problem. So systematic dapat and orderly ang ating pagkakapresent. Okay, of the background information with educational trends related to the problem, unsolved issues and social concerns. Now dito, usually gumagamit tayo ng TIOC approach to present the background of our study. TIOC, so T means trends. So you have to show, one sentence, you have to show what are the trends na related sa variables na pinag-aaralan mo or the trends na related to your variables. Okay? Then, so, after T, you have I. So, TIOC kasi T is for the trends, I is for the issues. So, you have to identify an issue or a gap or a conflicting findings, for example, na na-associate mo with your study. So, definitely gumagawa tayo na kasi ng research, di ba? To solve a gap or to solve a problem. So, you have to indicate that as well under the background of your study. Okay, what are the issues, for example, or what are the gaps, if ever na marami, you have identified several, so you have to indicate them. And then, so TIO is for the objectives, so you have to outline the purpose or the aim of your study, so that is for the objectives, no? And then C is for the contributions. Okay, what are the contributions of your study? Okay, so that is a TIOC approach. So trends, issues, objectives, and contributions. Now, for the background of the study, usually 2 to 3 pages ang haba nito. Pero again, you should be concise, not too long, not too narrow in terms of the background of the study. Ang mahalaga, maipakita yung sinabi ko na yon. Yung trends, yung issues, the objectives, and contributions of your study. Okay, and here, do not forget to cite properly and paraphrase borrowed ideas to avoid plagiarism. So that is for the background of the study. So again, this will be discussed to you and you will be guided by your professors or by your advisors if you are going to write this paper now. Next, you have the statement of the problem, the second section of the introduction under chapter 1. So, clear identification of the problem statement and succinct, unambiguous statement of specific problems related to the major problem. So, on my previous discussion, I already discussed this, right, on how you're going to state your SOP. So, basically, you have here the general problem statement or your purpose statement at saka yung inyong mga specific questions. So, this is very important, okay? Because like, this will provide the direction for your research work, itong ating SOP. Kaya dapat maayos ang pagkakasulat nito and clear para sa mga researchers, para sa inyo, kung ano talaga yung gusto ninyong tahakin na topic or the problem that you have identified. And then here you have the conceptual or the theoretical framework. So, development and presentation of conceptual frame with reference to the problems of the study. So, for the conceptual framework, this is a diagram or a framework showing the relationship between the variables na inyong pag-aaralan or na inyong pinag-aaralan. Okay? And then, this is the presentation of the theory which explains why the study exists. So, yung theoretical framework, you are going to link your study to an existing theory. Okay, yung conceptual framework again, this is the presentation of the variables that you are investigating. Okay, well, for the theoretical framework, this is you will be selecting a theory na related to your study and you have to explain or justify how is it related to your present study. So you have to explain their relationship at bakit iyon yung napili mong theory. Okay, so again, for your NR1 lecture, this will be expounded pa. Okay, so the conceptual and the theoretical framework. Next, the hypothesis of the study. So it's a clear-cut statement of hypothesis or assumptions. So this is an educated guess, di ba? Si ating hypothesis. So here we formulate the null hypothesis and the research or the alternative hypothesis. So the null hypothesis of a test always predicts no effect or no relationship between variables. Ganun natin siya ini-state. There is no significant effect or no relationship or significant difference between the variables. So it's always no or negative yung ating null hypothesis. While for the research or alternative hypothesis, it states your research prediction naman of an effect or relationship. So basically, it's the opposite of the null hypothesis. Significance of the study. So this is you identify the role of the study in current or contemporary development. In current, contemporary, or development. So orderly identification of probable users of the research and how they can specific ways on how the findings could be used para sa mga na-identify nyo na users. Now, usually, it can be a group of people. Yung mga probable users can be group of people. For example, nursing students, clinical instructors, nursing administrators, future researchers. So for example, they can be your probable users. So all you have to do is to outline or discuss how will they benefit from your study. Okay, for example, nursing students. So you just discuss how will they benefit? How can your study be of use to them? Ganun din sa nursing administrators or future researchers. Okay, so that is for the significance. So next section under chapter 1 pa rin, introduction, scope, and delimitations. So dito, the scope details how in-depth your study is to explore the research question and the parameters in which it will operate in relation to the population and time frame. So that is for the scope. Usually, sige, yung delimitations muna. The delimitations of a study are the factors naman and variables not to be included in the investigation. So yung scope, ito yung mga in-include mo in your study, while the delimitations, ito naman yung mga hindi mo in-include, meaning yung mga in-exclude mo in your investigation. Now, in writing the scope and delimitations, usually ito lang yung nilalagay natin. You just have to answer the 5 W's and 1 H. If you answered all of this, then you're good with your scope and delimitations. So the 5 W's include what is the study all about? Why, meaning why are you conducting the study? Who are the respondents or the subjects of your study? Where it will be conducted, the research locale, and when are you planning to collect your data? And then 1H, how are you planning to conduct the study, meaning your data gathering procedure. Okay, so you may include also here the instruments of your study. Okay, so ayun, you provide the information for the 5 W's and 1 H in writing your scope and the limitations. And then we have the definition of terms. So this is the use, under the definition of terms, we use conceptual or operational definitions for the key variables na meron kayo in your study. Magkaiba si conceptual tsaka si operational definitions. Dito usually maraming nagkakamali. Pag sinabing conceptual definition, it tells you what the concept means. And you may have a citation for this. Kung kanino nanggaling yung definition, you have you have to cite. Okay? Kung kanino nanggaling yung concept, you have to cite kung kanino nanggaling yon. Now, while operational definitions naman, it only tells you how are you going to measure that variable or that term. Meaning how you are going to, yun na nga, it's usually the questionnaire na gagamitin mo for the operational definition. Okay, the instrument na you're planning to use. Okay? Example, you may give the definition of depression, anxiety, and stress based on the literature. Okay, you may give the conceptual. Okay, for the conceptual definition, you give the conceptual definition of, for example, depression, anxiety, and stress based on the literature na nabasa mo. And again, you can outline or cite kung sino yung author na nag-explain ng concepts na yon. Okay, yung depression, anxiety, and stress. That is for the conceptual definition. Now, for the operational definitions, how are you now going to measure si depression, si anxiety, and stress? So, you have to indicate. And for example, ang nakita mong instrument or questionnaire is the DASS-21 or DAS-21, Depression, Anxiety, and Stress Scale 21. So, that is now the questionnaire or the operational definition. Okay? So, DAS 21 questionnaire, which is an approved instrument for measuring adverse mental states and depression, anxiety, and stress in adults. So, that will be used to operationally or to measure the variables na meron ka. Okay, so hindi ako makapag-provide pa ng ng visual example sa inyo kasi I'm just giving you an overview. Again, this will be further discussed sa inyo kapag nasa part na kayo ng pag-write ng section na to. Okay, so that is for chapter 1, introduction. We proceed to chapter 2 na tayo. So chapter 2 is about literature review. So we have different sections for this. Review of related literature, review of related studies, and synthesis. Now, to give you an overview lang din, pag sinabing review of related literature, so these are published materials that compare the study with existing knowledge on the research topic. This part defines, classifies, and facilitates objective comprehension of the variables being studied. Okay, separate them as to whether the literature is foreign or local. So, pinaghiwalay natin ano yung mga galing sa other countries and ano yung meron tayo, ano yung literature na nakita mo locally. Okay, while si review of related studies naman, this part includes the thesis na on research topics carrying the same variables. Ito yung mga previous research na nagawa. Okay, mga thesis, unpublished or published man yan or dissertations na nagamit mo that is related to your study. Okay, pareho kayo ng variables na pinag-aaralan. So the findings from the previous studies define the approach that the researcher took in measuring the variables. Again, you separate the foreign from the local studies. Now, after you accomplish the related literature, related studies, provide a synthesis or a summary at the end of chapter 2 about the related uh, lit and studies indicated in your paper. Now you can present chapter 2 in thematic or conceptual presentation. So again, your advisors or your professors can also guide you kapag ka write na kayo ng chapter na to. Ito yung mga things lang to consider in writing your chapter 2. Again, just an overview lang. So, ang mahalaga dito would be you have to give more weight to other studies considered more authoritative as evaluated and should give reference to primary rather than secondary sources. Okay? And then thematically, ayun, organize your RRL thematically. Hindi tayo pwedeng maglagay lang ng mga literature na ng hindi ng walang ng hindi systematic, ano. You have to present your chapter 2 thematically, meaning by themes. Okay, in order dapat yung pagkaka-present natin to conform with the specific problems. So, for example, how you created your SOP, how it was presented sa inyong paper, dapat your chapter 2 should conform that structure or that order. Okay? Based on your SOP. So again, this you will be guided by your professors, by your advisors. And then kapag sa lecture ko din in NR1 lecture, I will be more comprehensive sa pagdi-discuss ko nito. This is actually my next topic, ano, about the RRL. And then chapter 3 tayo. So research methodology. So we have here the research design, local, participants, technique, gathering procedure, instruments, and data analysis. So, research design muna tayo under chapter 3. It's a concise description of the research method and justification for its use. So, for example, if it is a quantitative research, then what specific quantitative design ang ginamit mo? And you have to justify. Now, if it's a qualitative research, what quality research design was used? And you have to justify. Okay? So, ito yung ano lang, specific research design na ginamit mo, kung quanti man yan or quali, and justify kung bakit iyon yung pinaka-appropriate design sa iyong study. Research local. So, this is the description of the place where the researcher will conduct the study. So, where are you planning to um, conduct your study? Saang lugar yan and why? Justify. Okay, laging you have to justify. Next, research participants and the respondents. So, who are the target participants? Okay, or the population first and then the number of the respondents or subjects. So, we have the estimated number must be included and then including how did you arrive with that number of population. Kasi you have to compute kung gaano karami yung respondents mo dyan eh. So, there's a specific computation for that. You have to include that as well. Sampling technique. So, what sampling design or technique will be utilized in the study? So, with justification. So, is it tawag dito, for example, simple random ba yan, or like a we have different types of sampling technique, ano. So kapag ka quanti, may appropriate na or mas may suggested tayong design for that. So for quanti, ano yan, most of the time probability sampling ang ginagamit. For qualitative research, most of the time non-probability sampling technique ang ginagamit, such as your purposive sampling. Okay, so again, that will be discussed further kapag when we reach the topic already. Next, data gathering procedure. So outline the step-by-step data gathering procedure, or the step-by-step process na gagawin nyo, okay, in conducting your research. Okay, from the permission letter or getting permission to your dean, tapos getting permission to the institution, and then ano pa, yung all the step by step na gagawin nyo to collect data sa inyong respondents. Research instruments, so dito lang nakalagay ano-ano yung mga research materials or questionnaires na gagamitin ninyo for to measure the variables, okay, na under your study. So you have to indicate um, the full information of the instruments per variable. Okay? So, kasama yung Cronbach's alpha, for example, the purpose of that instrument, what will it measure? Okay? So, yan. And then, yun na nga, you have to include the validity of the instrument. Okay? The Cronbach's alpha. Data analysis. So this is also the statistical treatment. You briefly describe the data processing. So usually, per SOP, nilalagay natin, halimbawa, statement of the problem number 1. So what statistical uh, method or technique will be used for SOP 1, for SOP 2, SOP 3. So you have to indicate how are you going to process the data for each SOP. Okay, so you just have to include here how the data will be processed. So this is the data analysis part. So basically, class, in chapters 1 to 3, that comprise your proposal, research proposal. Okay, again, for your research proposal, it includes chapters 1, 2, and 3. And that is for our NR1. So matatapos natin, tatapusin nyo yung chapters 1 to 3 for your NR1. Yung NR2 nyo, Nursing Research 2, that includes naman chapters 4 and 5. Okay, that is your final defense na. Okay, that is for the Nursing Research 2. So hanggang dito lang tayo for our Nursing Research 1, yung ating research proposal. You have to complete all the chapters indicated and all the sections indicated here. I will also show lang yung the rest of the chapters. So we have chapter 4. So dito are results and discussion. So we have here the data presentation, which includes textual, tabular, or graphic. And you also have here the data analysis, the synthesis, and the interpretation. So it can be done in two ways. Can either be results, and then there will be the discussion. So magkahiwalay si result, magkahiwalay si discussion. Or yung another presentation naman is magkasama na results and discussion. So kapag nasa nursing research 2 na kayo, your instructors will guide you on how you will write chapter 4. So, ayan. Ito lang yung guidelines on how you can write chapter 4. So, the researcher is required to briefly introduce a topic, present the data, interpret the results, and analyze. So, presentation of the results should follow the order and sequence of the problems raised in Chapter 1. So, ipipresent nyo in Chapter 4 in order like how you presented your Chapter 1. Your SOP. So the researcher is required to scholarly analyze and interpret the results by providing scientific and unbiased insights concerning the results of the study. So, ayan. It is also suggested to integrate the contents of Chapter 2 in the analysis and interpretation of the results. So, definitely, yung essence ng Chapter 2 natin, dito nyo siya talaga maa-apply. Ano? So, you have to include kung sino yung mga nag-corroborate and nag-contradict in the result of your study. So, this is where you discuss them sa Chapter 4. So, this is just an example of Chapter 4. So, again, I will not be comprehensive. I'll just show you an example of how it is presented. Okay? Or like the format of Chapter 4. So, yan. So, a sample of a table and then an example of discussion. Okay, and then the last chapter is Chapter 5, which includes the summary, conclusions, and recommendations. So the purpose is to summarize the entire research project. So you include the discussions on what the research is all about, the problems and the hypothesis, and brief version of the significance of the study. So parang magbibigay ko ulit ng summary muna of the previous chapters dito sa Chapter 5. So, pag sinabing summary, it would also include the research design, the population and sample, and the statistical techniques used. Summary of findings or the results of the study is presented in the order of the problems raised in Chapter 1. So, you will present a summary of findings based on how you presented your SOP pa rin para organized and orderly yung ating pagkaka-present. And then yung conclusions naman, these are based on the findings of the study. So you will only conclude based on what you have found on your study. And then recommendations are based on the derived conclusions. So do not recommend if hindi naman siya, if it does not come from your conclusion. Okay? So you can only recommend based on your conclusions. So that is for chapter 5. So those are the those sections or those chapters na diniscuss ko that comprise the body of the thesis. So from chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next, we now proceed to the references. Okay, another element of a thesis. So your references. Your reference should follow an APA format, 7th edition. Since 7th edition na tayo, ano? I don't know if 96th edition pa rin, pero as far as I know, 7th edition format na yung ginagamit in most universities. So we'll have a discussion for this RRL in our next topic. This is organized in alphabetical order, hanging indent format yung ginagamit natin. So, to indent the second line of each entry, so ito, how you're going to structure or format yung inyong referencing, your references section. So, you just follow this one to format your references section. Now, this is how it will look like. So, naka-alphabetically arranged. And then, kung mapapansin nyo, this is how it is formatted. Okay? Again, you just follow this one para mag-indent, para naka-indent yung second line of each entry. Nakapasok itong second line of each entry. So, after the references, you have the appendices. So, for the appendices, again, it includes here, nakalagay lahat dito sa appendices yung mga ginamit yung documents such as the communication letters such as request letter or the approval letter, research instruments na ginamit, the tabulated statistical data, the raw one, Um, you can provide an example for this. And then the forms, if ever, such as the assignment of advisor, panel, or editor, you also have to include that as your appendix. Certifications, such as the language and technical editing and statistical analysis certification should also be included as your appendix. And then finally, the curriculum vitae of the researcher. So isa-isa kayo if you are uh, if you are in group, 'di ba? All the members of the group must have their own CV. Okay? So you also have to include that. So again, the purpose of this topic or this discussion is just to give you an overview of the whole um, research paper or thesis paper. So, kapag nandun na kayo sa section where you have to write that chapter or that part, you will be guided by your instructor or your professor. And that will also be discussed comprehensively kapag you reach that topic already. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening. God bless you all.